It's a Wales through a goal, slots it beyond Foderingham, and the Millers are in front in the South Yorkshire derby. And for the first time in 42 years, Rotherham United win at Bramall Lane. On the edge of the box, the Dauphin, he can hit them, and he does. The Dauphin has scored an absolute screamer for Rotherham United. Rotherham United have secured their championship status for next season.
Do me a favour, drop me off in Rotherham.
Hello everybody, welcome back to New York Talk. This is the Rotherham United podcast. Thank you for joining us. We have another defeat. We still only have 1 point on the board, but there's plenty of positives. There's plenty of positives to take out of the defeat at home to Leicester City. We will also look ahead because we have a blockbuster round 2 Carabao Cup tie at Stoke City to talk about, which we're all excited about. And then we'll pick up wherever else we can find. We also have the draw for the shirt that Kev Johnson's will raising money for the Macmillan care. That'll be done partway through the episode. We will do that. We've got the wheel ready to go. We'll do that later on in the show. Don't worry about that. Mick, how are you doing?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. It's going to be a good laugh tonight because I've got a cough and then your voice is going. So it's the perfect environment to do a podcast, I think.
It is. Yeah, it is. Danny will be with us later on. He's been working, so he might be a bit late, but he will be with us. Should be with us later on, Danny, hopefully. So we've got a few people, obviously loads of people in the comments. As always, YouTube user, Powermad, Martin Holland, Steve Grundy. Says he got the scoreline collect from side prediction. Michael Carnell, Graham Lindley, Gav Grundy says, evening all, thought we were worth a point. Kim Haywood and Ruth Clark are with us as well. Dave Carroll says, good evening, the best is yet to come. Okay, I'm happy, mate. Let's just talk about the overall general feeling before we talk into a lot of specifics to talk about from the game, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But your general feeling, like I said, I sort of joking, I said at the start of the episode, we've only got 1 point, we've lost 3 out of 4 games. But how do you feel about the season ahead and how we've started the season, I suppose?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you look at, if you were to go back now and watch all 4 games back to back, the progression will be obvious. It will be so obvious. We started off at Stoke absolutely just dreadful, woeful, and we finished yesterday at 5 o'clock or whatever time it was. Very, very disappointed that we've not taken anything off the Premier League big boys, so to speak, and in my view, justifiably disappointed. So it feels very positive. Obviously on the back of a defeat, we last night were a bit low, I guess. But when you've slept on it and had time to think about it, no, I'm really positive, really, really happy with what I saw yesterday. In terms of the level of performance.
I agree. There's so many positives to take out of the game yesterday. And there's so many positives to take out of the Sunderland game. And there's so many positives to take out of the Blackburn game. We'll just forget we ever played Stoke because that were a write-off. And I think yesterday was the longest we played well. The Blackburn game was around 40 minutes, give or take, we played well. The Sunderland game was about 25 minutes, we played pretty well. This was 70 minutes, basically, up until the sort of subs started being made. Yeah. That's the longest we played. So there is a very clear, like I say, it's a very clear, obvious progression from game to game so far, which is all you can really ask. We all want 12 points on board, this, that, and the other. Yeah. But at this stage, it's about progressing, and eventually the results will come.
The results will definitely come. It's a change in the style of football. And it's one that I've longed for ages. Under Paul Warren, we played that high energy, high press that I keep banging on about, and I loved it. However, we had nothing else. That was it. And there was a lot of long ball stuff. There was a lot of direct play, but now we're still playing that high energy, high press. But we're looking to maintain possession of the ball a lot more. Not only looking, we are doing. Some of the football we played yesterday was outstanding. I'm talking about Rotherham United here. I'm not talking, and that's the thing. It may not be outstanding to the likes of Leicester or any Russell Martin team. However, from our point of view, it was excellent because we tried to keep the ball. We didn't try to keep the ball. We kept the ball.
We did. Yeah.
And we were effective and positive in the way that we passed the ball as well. We weren't looking to just fit around across the back four. It was always looking to get forward and get on the front foot. It's just really positive. I genuinely feel that we are moving quite quickly in the right direction, but there are some buts, aren't there, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But overall, from a performance point of view, and you've also got to bear in mind the opposition that we've played so far. Stoke, I think a lot of people's dark horses to be finishing. They've sort of gone under the radar in terms of their recruitment, but they've recruited very well. Blackburn, maybe not quite so much. Sunderland, playoff contenders last season.
Well, Blackburn were.
As were Blackburn, and obviously Leicester City. I don't know whether anybody's mentioned this. I'll let you know. I don't know whether you do know. You might not. They actually won the Premier League.
Did they?
They did.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. They should tell people more.
Well, and not only that, they've still got a couple of players playing for them who actually did that. So it's Anyway.
A few comments. John Merrill says performances have to turn to points quickly, as playing well and losing is not a good habit. It's not, but I think the style of play just leads itself to positive. I remember the start of the season, Rob Staten came in for an incredible amount of stick from fans because he suggested that's a really, really tough start. And do you know what? It's turned out to be a really, really tough start. It's turned out to be absolutely spot on.
And it don't get any easier.
And it don't get easier in Norwich next week, does it? No, of course it don't. Right,
John, we'll have Birmingham soon, won't we? So that'll kind of bring level down a bit.
Danny, you're with us, mate. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing all right, thank you. How are we both?
Very, very good. Just give us your general thoughts. We'll talk about the specific goals and incidents later in a minute. But just give your general thoughts and feelings on the Millers' performance yesterday, and how are you feeling, positive or negative about it all?
I think looking back, I drew quite a lot of comparisons between Sheffield United playing Man City. You can quite clearly tell the levels of the two teams, but we gave a good account of ourselves against an opposition that, has a wage bill that's nearly 10 times ours. And we made the contest look a lot closer than what it was on paper. And I think if you were to play with that same level and see it out for longer of the game, we'll be A-OK this season. I still think there's the issue of seeing the game out because we seem to drop off a lot after 75, 80 minutes or so. Maybe that's through lack of squad depth. I'm not sure. But overall, I think it was a good showing. It's just a shame that we didn't pick up a point, at least, for efforts, that's all.
Yeah, I agree. Few comments. Even the evening lads from Mark Gambles thought we were worth a point. Fred was man of the match for him. You'll talk about Fred in a minute because we have to. For those reasons that Mark mentions. Andy Peace has had a genuine goal scorer and we have a competent championship squad. If you have a genuine goal scorer, we've got more than competent for me, a championship squad. This has been a very difficult start, and I'm certain that we'll get some results against lesser teams.
I think he makes a good point there, and we've been dreaming for 6-8 years now of having a competent championship squad, and it's a good word because it's clear that I think we've now got that. We've now got a competent starting 11 plus some competent backups, but not enough competent depth. That has to be the next step in our progression as a club to achieve that level. We can't possibly be aiming to achieve an exceptional top end championship club in one league. It's about progression, and I think we are not a million miles away from there at all.
No, we're not. Let's talk about the first major incident of the game. Cheryl Stone says, although we were incensed yesterday, it looks like it may have been the right decision. Now, obviously, this is in reference to the goal that was disallowed. I can't remember what it was, 20 minutes in, something like that. Bit of confusion about what the referee gave at the time. But on reflection, Mick, it's a foul on the keeper from Dexter. Dexter's backed into the goalkeeper. This is my opinion, obviously. Dexter's backed into the goalkeeper, and Hugo is possibly offside. We don't have the angle to say yes, he was offside or not. But I could, if the line was giving him offside, I could probably accept that from the angles we've been given. So it's the right decision, sadly, for me.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue it, and I don't want to spend half an hour banging on about officials and referees, but there's some confusion, and there was confusion at the time. I don't think he's given it for offside.
Okay,
I genuinely don't, and the reason being, one, I don't think Hugo touched it. I think it went straight in off Cam for his head, and then onto the post and in. Is my sort of how I read the video. Arguably, Hugo was in an offside position, but if he'd given it for offside, at the point that they have had their conversation and their discussion and decided to disallow it, at that point the linesman should be raising his flag for offside. That's just at least to signify what's been given, and he didn't. At no point did it. So I'm coming down on the side that it probably wasn't given for offside. The referee gave an indirect free kick, so he can't have given it for the foul on the goalkeeper because that's not an indirect free kick. So the only thing I can think of is that he's given it for obstruction on the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Now I've talked to somebody earlier on today. I cannot remember. Genuinely, I cannot remember. And somebody in the comments might be able to tell me differently that they've seen it, but I cannot remember the last time outside of the 1980s when I saw an indirect free kick given for obstruction. I just can't remember it. So my train of thought here is that given the amount of time it took them to decide whether or not to disallow or allow the goal, they were more looking for a reason to disallow it than they were to let it go. There's confusion. If there's confusion, I don't know. I'm not saying it's a bad decision. I'm saying it was poorly handled.
It was poorly handled. It took too long to make the decision. The issue is the length of time to make the decision.
Well, either it is. Have you got some bubbles in there, Danny? Or...
it's a McDonald's milkshake. We know how thick they are.
Oh, yeah. I'll explain it then. They did take far too long. Too long. But anyway, listen, it got disallowed. And we have to move on from that, don't we? Let's not get caught up in another sort of referees don't like us argument.
Yeah. On that, it was another one of those things that we scored a goal and then something bad happened, Danny. And this is a potential issue going forward, that when something bad happens to us, whether it's a red card for Onyedimna, whether it's an injury to a Dolphin, we're not very good at bouncing back instantly. It seems to take us 5 to 10 minutes to find our feet again. And this is now 4 games in a row. You can include the capital red card as well, which we didn't deal with very well as a team. That is a bit of a concern that we're not dealing with the negative side of the game very well, in my opinion. So they scored straight away, really, from an avoidable goal.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know. It almost seems like there's a script written for Rotherham, and if something happens that isn't part of the script, it sort of like throws us off a little bit. Like we've had a lot of disasters from scoring. We had Peltier scoring against Stoke and then getting injured. We had a Dolphin scoring and then getting injured. We had Onyedimma scoring and then getting sent off. I'm surprised Onyedimma didn't get something, if I'm being honest. It was virtually written in the stars that something would happen when we scored. But yeah, it does seem like, when something bad happens, like when Leicester scored the first goal, it took us a little bit to settle back into it, get going again, and then, we found it. But then when they scored again, it's almost as if, we almost didn't have the energy to fight back at that point. And like I mentioned just before, it could be a squad depth thing, because we are quite light on the bench at the minute due to injuries and maybe being 3 or 4 players short potentially. But yeah, it sounds really hard. It sounds really harsh criticising, but it almost seems like we don't know how to see the game out. We know where the key points are. Like if they've scored, respond. But if they score again, we don't know what the response is to that. It'll be interesting to see what would occur if we were the ones who scored first. Be like, do we try and sit on it? Do we try and get a second one? Like, what would be the case there? I mean, we scored first against Sunderland, and then we just dropped off throughout the game. So at least we know what the response is to a goal when it happens early on, but the response to the goal when it happens later on, again, going towards more of a squad depth thing. I think it's just like, what now? Like, what's Plan C? Plan A is obviously to score first, but Plan B, if they score first, we know how to do that. But what's Plan C? What's the response? Might be different after the transfer window's shut. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it does seem to be a running theme that when something bad happens, we respond well. When something else bad happens, we don't respond well.
Yeah, it's Gerard Simpson. It's a mentality issue, which is bloody hard to work on. Yeah, of course it is. It's essentially a habit, and then I don't know, mate. Just your thoughts of. I can't think of the right phrase, to be honest with you, but we're not dealing with adversity. That's the one. When something goes against us, we're really struggling at the minute, and that's something Matt Taylor's going to work on, because we're going to go through a lot of adversity this season. We're going to lose a lot of games. We're going to concede a lot of goals. We need to find a way of dealing with it better than we have done so far.
To be honest with you, I don't think we suffered particularly in terms of our performance once that goal was disallowed. I think there were a bit of disappointment amongst the players, but I don't think there's a direct correlation between that and them then going down the other end and scoring.
We were poor though. We were poor for a 5-10 minute period, weren't we?
Yeah. And maybe, like you said, I think Matt Taylor alluded to it in one of his post-match interviews that the feeling on the pitch was, it's happening to us again, kind of attitude. So yeah, that is something that we need to get rid of. But it's not been helped, obviously, by the injustices that we as a club and as a set of supporters feel that we've been handed down over the first few games of the season. So it's going to take a while for that to get out of the system. But they're all grown men, and I'm sure it'll not. That I don't think this is going to be an issue we're going to be constantly talking about for the rest of the season. It's just a phase of play, if you like, or a phase of the season that causing a bit of an issue at the moment. We'll be fine, I'm sure.
Yeah. J.L.M. Simpson says, from what I read of the post-match article, it seems the squad and the fans think that the world is against them. Sorry, I meant to pull. Yeah, that's one I like. What world's against us? I do like that.
Well, the thing is, Steve Evans built a career on that, hasn't he?
He has exactly what he's done. Mourinho to an extent as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's something that can be turned into a positive is probably not the right word, but some sort of motivation to push you onwards. I don't know. Who knows?
Let's move on to, before we talk about our goal and our positives, I want to get the negative out of the way, and that's Cohen Bramall. We've got to talk about Cohen Bramall. He's coming for, predictably, he's coming for a bit of stick on social media. It's one of those times that I can't remember feeling as sorry for a player as I did at the end of the game for Cohen Bramall. He was very clearly devastated, and I don't think he's had a bad game. First, I'll go through what I think in terms of the goals. The first goal is not Cohen Bramall's fault or his responsibility. The ball should have been stopped. Once that ball is hung up in that fashion, Bramall's, what's he going to do? The attacker's got the momentum. He's stuck. It should have been stopped before it got to him. And the second one's just a nice mistake. He's trying to pick up two men. He's misjudged the flight. I think other than that, he did okay. I just felt so sorry from the end. Yeah,
I think with the whole two men thing, it almost seems like he's quite almost isolated on the left-hand side. He always seems to be picking up two men, which isn't necessarily his fault because it's a team unit. But I agree. I think Bramall knew he'd made a mistake, and he even apologised to the fans as he was walking around at the end on his own.
Yeah.
So for me, that takes a lot of guile and has a lot of respect to it, because he's took accountability for it. He's admitted that's my bad. He could have quite easily disappeared down the tunnel and not bothered with it, and then worked on it himself. But he knew about it. But I agree with the first one. I think the ball should have been stopped before the cross. Or before they got into the crossing position. That's not just Colin Bramall's fault for not challenging the player effectively. That could have been stopped 2 or 3 times before. And the second goal, if I'm not mistaken, it's led to a goal. That's one of the most devastating things for a defender, when you make the mistake and then they score. But again, like I say, he's took accountability for it. He knows he's made the mistake, and it's just something for him to work on. I think getting on the back will just make them make more mistakes, because it just takes the confidence away.
Yeah.
I think having the self-reflection to go, yeah, that's my mistake, I apologise for it, and then to build on that'll give him a lot of confidence back, and for fans to go, yeah, he's admitted his mistake, we move on to the next one.
Yeah. Jalen Simpson says, pace is amazing, just not great defensively. Can he work on this, or should he be utilised differently by Matt Taylor? We've talked about that before. I think it could be. Nicholas Skimmo says, I thought he had a decent game for the second. Yeah, okay, he wasn't with his man, but he was covering the middleman, and the switch of play was a great for crossfield ball.
Yeah.
And the finish weren't too bad either. Right, the puts. Yeah, I mean, he's covering 2 men. Danny right points out, and you pointed out yesterday, mate. He's got 2 men. He can't mark both men. He had to make a decision. He's made the decision to go with the middleman and try and then cover any crossfield ball. It hasn't worked out, and it's a stunning finish.
Yeah,
he shouldn't be hammered for that. We're going to hammer next time Victor makes a mistake. We're going to hammer Victor, and next time that Cam Humphreys makes me like Sunderland, he didn't get hammered for making that mistake. We've got to be really careful on this, I think.
Anybody who can deal with their own emotions can be careful about it, can't they? And understand the consequences or potential consequences of telling somebody that they're not good enough to be playing for us. There's a middle ground to be had, and the lad has made a mistake. He's held his hand up to the mistake. He was clearly gutted, absolutely gutted. And he's waited for everybody to go off the pitch, for all his teammates to take their applause for the performance that they've had, and then he's gone round and apologised. That takes some balls for me, and he's really, really gone up in my estimation. I like him anyway, but the way he dealt with the fact that he'd made that mistake, really, for me, it just makes me like him even more. To say he's not good enough, it's a game of opinions, this, isn't it? Everybody's got a different opinion. I don't agree with that at all. He is absolutely good enough to play in the Championship side, and he's good enough to play in our side. He's defensively at times, he's sometimes left wanting. However, he's because of his pace, he's able to get out of that a lot of the time. The issue yesterday for me, probably for both goals, as you've just pointed out there, Tyler Blackett and Cam Humphreys need to help him out a little bit, because he's constantly getting doubled up on, and it's not, he's not getting that help. With 2 or 3 times, particularly in the first half, where we were literally covering 2 men, and they were just playing the ball around him. Yeah, and he managed to stop the cross getting in or whatever on most occasions, but he's never going to do it every time. So he needs some help from his defenders, and possibly coming back from midfield as well. That's something they're going to have to work on. That's a tactical issue. That's not an ability issue. It disappoints me. But it's the way of the world, isn't it? That people feel that if I think a player's not good enough, I'd like to think that I'm not going to come on here or go into social media and say how crap they are. I probably have in the past, and if I have, it's wrong, because it makes it. If somebody's suffering with a confidence, whatever it is in life, if somebody you don't know just tells you you're not good enough, no good anyway, what benefit? The only person that benefits from that is the person who says you're not good enough, because it means that they can deal with their own inability to deal with their emotions by putting it onto somebody else. It's poor. It's poor for me. That again, it's all about opinions, isn't it? And if people want to do it, let them do it. But I don't think it benefits the club, and it certainly doesn't benefit the player. to have people calling him out on social media, say that they're not good enough when they clearly are. You know, they make a couple of mistakes, and all of a sudden they're bad players. It's the way of the world, isn't it? And I accept that. Don't make it right though.
No, it's just a good job we didn't do this podcast when Jason Taylor playing, isn't it, Mick? Because then you might have had a different view then.
I may do, but I don't think I would be personally attacking him.
No.
You know what I mean? And that's what it's drawing that line, isn't it? And that's not about football. That's just about social media in general, isn't it? But it frustrates me because it's our club, it's our team, and the last thing we want is a player turning up to training or a player turning up to Norwich game on Saturday lacking in confidence because he thinks that the fans who are watching him are about to get on his back. You don't need it. It's an added pressure that's not necessary. Why would you do that to your own team? It doesn't make any sense to me. It don't compute.
Agreed. Right, we're going to move on and do the prize draw now, and then we're going to talk about the positive side of things. So this is for the shirt that Kev Johns has arranged. I don't have the season again. Do you remember the season shirt is Danny?
94, 95, in it?
Yeah. So this is obviously to raise. This would obviously raise funds for Matt Goodwin, for the Macmillan care. I think I'm right in saying.
Did you do any research for this, Matt, before we start?
Well, sadly, Kev couldn't come on the show. Kev was meant to, but sadly, Kev couldn't do it, so we're filling in badly for him. And I said that I'm going to try. What we're going to do is give it a list of names. We're going to do the wheel, which he's done in the past. And we're going to try this. I've got all the names, so let's try and we'll do this. So we're going to share my screen. Apologies for the audio listeners. This might not.
It's the fact this is live. This is going to be brilliant.
I'll try and commentate through it. So everybody can see there on the audio, so you can see all the names of the people that have been on this. Mick and Danny, just to confirm, I can't see that you can see that. Can you see this?
I can.
Fantastic. So we will play it through here, and hopefully we will get a winner. Good luck, everybody who has participated and raised funds for the look at. It's really, if me or Danny wins this, we have Bernie. I think that's how you say it. B-Y. We'll write that down so I can obviously tell Kev. B-Y-R-N-E-Y. If you are the winner, congratulations. You have won that. I was a glorious shirt because I thought it was a very nice shirt, but I would have loved to have won it. But congratulations, and thank you to everyone who was donated as well, participated in the prize draw, because obviously it was a wonderful cause, as there are many. That's well into everyone involved, Kevin, Matt Goodwin, who organised that. Thank you, everybody. Right.
I bet you the winner is just currently doing laps around his living room.
Yeah. A lot of names on there. So obviously that's a lot of money raised. Let me see if Kev's giving me a total. Bear with. Should have done this before. We don't have he hasn't given a total yet, but I'm sure he will let us all know when he is able to do so. Let's move on. Let's move forward. Positives, Danny. Positive. There are plenty of positives. Let's start with the goal of Fred Onyedimna. He is some player, that lad, isn't he? You know what I mean? I think we are very lucky to have a player like that because he has all the attributes you could need.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it helps when he's not suspended through a silly refereeing decision as well. But yeah, I mean, we were saying on the post-match, it's like 2 goals from 2 headers for him, but they're very different grades of header. The first one was a power drive of a diving header, and this one it almost seems like just to politely kiss his forehead, and it snuck in at the far post. But if he's getting in them sort of positions where he loses his man, he finds himself in space, he's able to get the header in and a shot on target, that's going to be key this season. And he seems to put in the work no matter what wing he's on. I noticed he swapped wings at one point against Leicester as well, and he does seem quite effective on both wings. But he's getting in them goal scoring positions. It's almost as if Hugo or Reeves or whoever draws in the centre halves, because they're the big man that's up top, and just sort of sneaks in behind them and gets and then gets a shot on target, and so far 2 goals. And And it seems like a system that we could benefit from, because everyone sees the big man and likes to put in hard challenges on him, but it's the guy playing off his shoulder, slightly behind him or slightly wider than him, that they don't seem to track sometimes. And I think that's the case with Onyedinma. He loses his man, gets in the in the positions to get the header on target, and like I said, so far it's 2 goals. It did seem to take an age to go in, if I'm being honest. I was bang behind it, and it's please, I was expecting the keeper to get there because he pulled off a couple worldies that game as well, but he didn't get there. And for a brief moment, it's here, we're giving Leicester a game here. Already I'll say the champions elect Leicester, but we gave him a game, and I think it was Onyedinma's goal that really put it to us hey, we could get a couple here. We didn't, but we certainly played a lot better when we equalised. And then because every positive we've got so far, and I hate to say this, every positive we've got so far always has the negative, kicking the can down the road behind it. It's the positive, we matched Leicester, we played really well against them, we got the equaliser, and we were pushing for a second, and we could have got one. But the negative to that is that we got to the drop-off point, and then you could see where, the squad depth and stuff comes from. But in terms of having Onyedinma not suspended, he's a real asset to this team, and it's just a shame that he's on loan, in my opinion.
Yeah. He was almost a swap for Chio, Mick. And although he is a different type of player to Chio. And although we all love Chio, and we'll not have a bad word said against Chio, I think Onyedinma suits the way Matt Taylor wants to play better than Chio did. Chio's work rate was always lacking. He did everything else brilliantly, but the work rate was lacking. Onyedinma's work rate is phenomenal. Yeah. He pops up in places you just think, oh, he's at left. No, he's actually right hand side, stood next to Andre Green, who is meant to be opposite side to, and then next minute he's defending his position at left hand side again.
Yeah.
He could be a key player this season because he just fits Rotherham United perfectly.
It seems to, doesn't he? You're absolutely right. And he is a bit of an upgrade on Chio, with the greatest respect, because of that work rate. He can do just about the same thing that Chio can do. He's not as quick, obviously, because there are a few that are, but he's popping up with goals. He's like a cross between Chio and Ollie Rathbone. In the sense that he gets everywhere. So yeah, hugely impressed with him, and quite surprising to see some of the comments, or looking back now with hindsight, some of the comments from some sections of the Luton supporters saying, we're glad to get rid of him, and laughing that he's not going to do it. Well, it's another one of those, isn't it? Players find homes, I guess.
Yeah,
I think that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but they find a place and a system and a team that they're comfortable in. And those systems, those teams evolve, and they become uncomfortable, and they become bad players again. You know what I mean?
I think at Luton he was playing wing back.
Yeah, and he's far better suited. He's far more dangerous going forward. Obviously, we've not seen his defensive ability yet, and haven't needed to. Thankfully, hopefully, we won't have to. But yeah, he's a hell of a signing.
Yeah, I thought the front three worked a lot of stick. We'll maybe talk about Hugo in a minute, but I thought the front three worked quite well. It was noticeable when Hugo came off that the front three didn't work anymore. To be honest with you. Another player who stood out, Danny, and another player who was getting better game by game is Dexter Limbikisa. Me and Mick talked about this in the game yesterday. So this time last year we had Bucknott and Cuffy, and we played a slightly different formation. But I am seeing much more potential in Limbikisa than I ever saw in Bucknott and Cuffy. Bucknott and Cuffy was quite good going forward. There were question marks defensively, certainly eventually. You're struggling to say where Limbikis's weakness is. Maybe he's young, he's raw, maybe his decision making is not quite there at times. But he's great going forward. He's great defensively. He's not scared of a tackle. He's everything you want in a right back. Potentially
his crossing as well.
Possibly.
I've noticed that his crossing always seems to be a little bit deep. But other than that, one of the main concerns was because he do defensive. He's like I say, he's very good at going forward. He's got a lot of pace. And I think the pace of Onyedinma and Lemekisa is not quite cheating, but it's a bit, it has potential to be overlaps.
Yeah.
And at times at Leicester, they were on the overlap together. Lemekisa would push forward and Onyedinma would come narrow to receive the ball, but they were overlapping each other. But with Dexter, he showed me, certainly me against Leicester, that he has that defensive side to him.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something they've been working on in training. But like I say, he's not scared for a tackle and he tracks back. I think early doors he didn't really track back as much, whereas certainly against Leicester, maybe it was because it was the calibre of the team or what, but he tracked back and he did so effectively. And say he's only 19-year-old and he's starting to show what he's capable of, at least in the way we operate. That's very positive and shows how much potential he's got. Like obviously he's not at Wolves by accident, but it's almost like he's coming out of his shell with us, if that makes sense. It was more of a I'm going to attack and get crosses into the box. Whereas now it's like he has to do the almost the dirty work of football, like being the fast wide player, but you need to defend at the same time. And like I say, he's showing he can do that. And if he keeps going from strength to strength, then again, it's another player that's a real asset. And another, in my opinion anyway, clever piece of business in the transfer window.
Yeah, no, he is absolutely. Their winger, Steffi Mavididi, did just struggled, Nick. There were countless times where Dexter, he's got a little shimmy, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Where he goes and then goes back and then goes again. Just sort of takes off. They couldn't deal with his movement. That is right. I think crossing the issue, and he hasn't got a left foot, to put it politely. But yeah, he's what we need. The issue is we've got no backup penalty as injured. That's the issue. And we're asking him to play 90 minutes, and he was blowing from probably 70 minutes onwards yesterday.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Other than that, it was arguably up for man at match for me.
Yeah, he was up there, wasn't he? He was up there. Quality player, that lad. Or he certainly will be. Like you say, he's a bit raw at the moment, but give him 3 or 4 years and he will be, without a question, a Premier League player. He is quality, no doubt. And another one that, it's surprised that we've got him, but I'm glad we have. Both him and Fred stand out as having that quality over and above what we've had previously in this division. There's a massive step up in quality, and for other supporters of other Championship teams, the step up in quality probably won't mean anything because all we're doing is getting to their level. But we are getting to their level, and it's not a level that we've seen consistently at this club for many years. So and players like Dexter are massively contributing to that. So yeah, I love him to bits, and it looks like he's having fun.
He looks happy,
enjoying himself.
Yeah,
which is huge. It's huge.
Yeah, it is, and I can see why Jamaica have called him up so young as well. Yeah, you want that. You want that in your team internationally going forward because he's going to have a career. He's going to have a good career in.
Absolutely.
He absolutely is. Then we'll talk about maybe some other positive performance in a bit, but something you've alluded to a few times is depth. I think we called an episode last week issues of depth. That issue is still there because when things needed change, obviously we brought Appiah on for his debut, which was obviously good. And then
good but quiet, I think, from Appiah.
It was good, yeah. He was quiet. He needs a bit of match fitness, I think. But then the rest of the other 3 subs, you're taking John Hugel off for Tom Eves, Tahi, which we'll talk about again in a minute, came off for JJ, and Ollie Rathbone had to come off for Kieran McGuckin as well. That's an issue because Leicester bringing on Jamie Vardy. And I'm not saying let's compete with this, you know what I mean? I'm not, but this is what we're up against. We don't have players. Eves sadly didn't improve us. JJ sadly didn't improve us. McGuckin was filling in a position he doesn't play. So there's issues here that had we been able to change the game positive with a Jamie Lindsay or an Odoffin or something like that, the game could have gone very differently in the end. That's what's probably cost us in the game, really, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even up top, instead of bringing Eves on, bringing Kelly on, I think with Eves, it's almost as if Eves isn't as like free flowing as Jordan Hugill is. He's like sort of plays a similar role, but he's not as free flowing with Hugill, and he doesn't press quite as much as Hugill does. Whereas, Georgie Kelly is very unorthodox and he'll do anything and he'll end up scoring somehow. But yeah, it was interesting that Tai came off for Coyote because Tai's a midfielder, isn't he?
That was an injury, though.
Was it an injury? Still interesting though that he came off and then they brought another attacker on in JJ. I think out of any of them, a rotation in midfield and bringing McGuckin on for TE, that may have been a little bit different. That rotation in midfield put Cafu a bit deeper, and then having McGuckin and Rathbone as your forward midfielders, if you like. That, I mean, I don't have my UEFA license, so I'm not entirely sure. But in my head, it sort of makes a little bit more sense. And I mean, even it just seemed like odds. Weirdly, you know what I mean? It sort of seemed like they're the substitutions you'd make without the depth. Like obviously, we don't have a lot of injuries. Like we can't bring Lindsay on, we can't bring a Dauphin on, we can't bring Ferguson on, we can't bring Kelly on, we can't bring Peltier on. So like that's quite a lot of names that you can't really bring on. And then you're sort of left with Eves, KOD, McGuckin, Douglas, McCart, and then obviously Appiah, who seemed the one to make the most sense, if you get me. But again, he came on and was good but quiet. Could put that down to being a sub, making your debut, which is always harder than being the starter, I think, because you're watching how everything happens and it's like, right, I need to match them. So it's almost like putting more pressure on yourself. It was just a strange one with substitutes. I think, like I say, if we had more players that weren't injured, then it may have been a different story. You could have brought a Dauphin on for T if he was injured. You could have brought on Lindsay for Rathbone and have that sort of switch. But unfortunately, we don't have that. And I think Taylor knew, as a lot of us knew, that we needed a change to try and shake the game up a little bit. And he tried that, and it almost felt like it were firing blanks because nothing really changed.
Yeah.
It's like we tried to match the intensity level with those new subs, but we didn't have any more push, if that makes sense, like push going forward and stuff. But I've spoken to a few people about this, and they've said when we've got a fuller squad, both injury-wise and signing-wise, then it adds more depth, it adds more different ways of playing, and, we could be all right. I mean, it's not going to be too long until Dauphin and Kelly are back. That'll be a boost. Ferguson, again, it's an option down the left side, but we've not really had a time frame with that, have we, really?
No, it didn't want to be an issue, really.
Yeah, and I think the two key areas to focus on is probably a striker of whatever guile, because let's face it, signings like, oh, it's a striker, we'll take it. It's like, that just seems to be how it is, Linkers 20 striker, oh, what they'll do, And maybe someone to cover Lembikisa now that Peltier's out longer term. I think focus on them too. Maybe bring in another midfielder, maybe, but we've got quite a few in that department when Lindsay's back. It's just, it feels light, like we said about when it was Paul Warren's Rotherham United, it felt light with Paul Warren, but with this it's like we're light because of injuries and we maybe need 3 or 4 as well. But then we could have 3 or 4 new incomings, but also leavings as well. So it's like, interesting stuff. But
yeah, Matt Tiller says he's hoping for 3 incomings this week. There will be outgoings, but it depends on what outgoings are. If outgoing is going to be a bowler and we're bringing in somebody who can start for us, then that's a good swap. That's great. We don't want to lose one of the key players, which I don't think we will, but you never know. But three signs in a week is going to be busy. He's going to be a busy man. Jalen Sims says that definitely what's cost us in terms of depth. Less than a week to go now, and I bet Rob Scott won't have a day off. He'll barely have 10 minutes off probably next week or so. Is that fair, Mick? 3 new signings is Will that put us in a great position? Because you're not going to have 5 injuries from main players out all season. You might get 2 or 3 at a time. We've got a lot of injuries out, plus 3 men into there. Do you think that, in terms of depth, that puts us in a good place?
I think it puts us in a really good place, given the fact that Lindsay's on his way back, Hakeem Doffin's on his way back, Georgie Kelly's injury wasn't anywhere near, as serious as was first thought. So, straight away, without anybody coming in, once they're back, you're almost up to strength.
Yeah.
Almost. So add another 3 onto that, and I'm very, very comfortable, particularly given the quality that we've already brought in. If they're of a similar level, then I'll be absolutely singing from rooftops. That'd be fantastic. Let's see what this week brings. It may be that when we turn out next Saturday against Norwich, we've got no new incomings. We're gonna have to reassess at that point, aren't we? And see what we can do. But there'll be some more in, I think, this week, and hopefully by then we'll be all right. We'll be comfortable. Yeah,
I hope so. We don't have any names. There's no rumours I've seen floating about for the low knees. So let's wait and see who comes in. Hopefully some good ones. Let's talk about a couple of other players before we move on to the Stoke game. First time most Rotherham fans got to see Tahi in the flesh. Some people, if you didn't go similar, you didn't see him at all. What were your thoughts, Dan? I thought it was a really tidy player, really calm and nice on the ball. There's a lot of the bar lasses about him. There's also issues where there aren't, but what are your thoughts on him and the midfield 3 of Cafu and Rathbone?
I think to begin with, it took him a little bit to find himself on home soil. That might be a little bit harsh on my part, but it's always hard making your home debut after making it at somebody else's ground. Because he came on against Sunderland, but he's done well. I still think there's the whole bedding in phase that he needs. He still needs to learn Matt Taylor really and learn the squad. But he's getting there. Like you say, he's got a bit of a Dan Barlaser about him, but there are certain things where he doesn't. But I think the midfield 3 of Cafu, Tahi and Rathbone as a starting 3 works really well. But I definitely think it's a midfield 3 that needs rotation later in the game just to keep it fresh. Because it feels like it's a midfield 3 that they'll find out Cafu's the distributor, Tahi puts himself about, and Rathbone's the runner. Like if you bring on like a Jamie Lindsay or an Adolphin later in the game, keeps it fresh, I think. But no, I like what I've seen of him so far. And I know this is going to sound really, really harsh. I don't think it's club record good so far, but that's one of like the things of, he grows into the role. No one hits the ground running completely. You might hit the ground running and have a stumble. For example, Cafu, I think he hit the ground running and had a stumble. But I think Tahi's going to be the same thing. I don't think he's hit the ground running, though. I think he'll grow into it, and that probably links him more to Dan Barlaser as well. Barlaser didn't hit the ground running. He was a slow burner and became really good for us. And I think he's going to be the same. This Tahi, I still haven't learned how to pronounce his name. No, I was told TE by Radio Sheffield, but it's like, is it? It looks like Tahi to me. Anyway, but yeah, it's probably going to be a slow burner, but I think maybe after the international break, he will be one of our standout performers.
Yeah, talking slow burners, the more I think about him, the more I think all I can think is Connor Coventry. To be honest with you, he's not got the passing length that Dan Barla has had. He doesn't seem to want to shoot because he had 2 or 3 times he could have let rip yesterday, but he was so calm under the pressure. So there were a couple of times where there were 2 Leicester players on him, and he just calmly knocked the ball back to Victor or knocked it back to Cameron, whatever else. I think he's going to be a dirty work kind of player, but probably better on the ball than Connor Coventry was.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely see some real positives in that lad. Given, like Danny's pointing out there, the lack of game time that he's had. There was some really good passing, some really good vision from him on Saturday, and as you said, ridiculously cool and calm and collected on the ball, and that's exactly what you want. There I can see why some of the supporters of other clubs he's played for sing his praises, and he's not. He's played 50, 60 minutes before. I don't know what the news is on his injury. I suspect it might have been cramp. But I say again, I've seen a couple of bits of criticism today on Matt Taylor taking him off. Why is he taking Tahi off? To be fair, and I think the question was, are the medical team running substitutions or is it Matt Taylor? Well, what I would say is that before the medical team even got to Tahi, he was signalling that he was done.
He was,
So, it was clearly an injury. What that injury is, hopefully, it's just a bit of a cramp or whatever. He didn't go straight down the tunnel. He went and sat on the bench, so it's clearly nothing too serious to worry about. But yeah, player like him, and the more I see a Cafu, the more I like him as well. He just goes about his business, doesn't he? He's the most un-Portuguese player that I've ever seen, I think, because he just gets on with it without any sort of. There's no sort of continental flair about him, is there? He just gets his head down and he does his job and he does it so well. Really,
it's the
really
English Portuguese player that we've seen.
Yeah. It's not. He has got flair. He can be a player. He can pick a pass. He can, But I don't know. He doesn't seem to rely on that. He just, like I said, just gets his head down and works. And I love him. Brilliant.
Yeah. When he's a criticism, we had a comment on the instant reaction yesterday from somebody who said, "Taylor out, worst manager we've ever had." I had to ask him if that was real, so we could use it on the podcast. And he thought, "Yep." He replied with, "Yep, changed the game by the 3 worst subs I've seen watching the Millers in 40 years." So that's.
Hang on, didn't Dexter Bladstock play for us at one point?
Yes.
Listen, it's again, it can be difficult at times after a defeat like that. When you feel like you should have got something out of the game, it can be difficult, I guess, to compute what you've seen and what's happened. And it's all about opinions. And in my view, that opinion's wrong. In their view, it's right. He's quite clearly not going to get sacked. That's just ridiculous. That's Sheffield Wednesday-esque kind of comment. That.
We've still got 0 points, by the way.
Well, yeah, but
that's going to come back to haunt me. I know it is.
I know.
But the bottom line is the substitution was made for a reason. And yes, I fully agree. They didn't improve us. In fact, they made us worse. I have to say, and I've been hugely disappointed in JJ.
Yeah, poor yesterday.
On both appearances. He strikes me as a player who's had a season-long injury. He's come back from a season-long injury and he's desperate not to get injured again. That's how he kind of holds himself, for me. He's not impacted the game at all. Tom Eaves is clearly a player that needs game time, because I remember having a conversation at some stage, and it was last season, where I compared him to my garage door, kicking the ball against my garage door, and it just bounces off. And that's what's happening at the moment. And he's had no game time. He's got no touch. Last season, he got 2 or 3 games, and his touch improved game on game, and his awareness and everything else improved game on game. I don't think that's going to happen this season. I don't think it's the right fit. But again, why do we have to publicly pillory these players? You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous.
Anyway, what I will say about Eaves, and this leads into my sort of defence of Hugo, is that it was really obvious that Hugo came off. It was real. I don't think Hugo had a particularly good game. And I said to me yesterday, I might say this as well. I don't think Hugo's had a very good season so far, 4 games in. But when he came off, Danny, it was really obvious that the focal point had gone, and Eaves is not able to. He doesn't have the game awareness to do what Hugo does. So are we being harsh on Hugo? Because he like you mentioned, he linked Green and Onyedinma together really well, and that only became noticeable after he came off.
I think it was noticeable that Hugo came off because we'd all seen how much Hugo had pressed the game and tried to stretch Leicester. there were a couple of times we very, very nearly got the ball from the Leicester keeper, and that's the sort of performance, like no fear sort of attitude that sort of encapsulates Rotherham United and how we should play. We shouldn't fear teams like like Leicester, Leeds, Southampton, Wednesday. We shouldn't fear teams like that because they're effectively on our level in terms of division. So why should we be scared of them? But when Hugo came off, we sort of lost that press, and it almost like Eves was just up top on his own, and the wide players had dropped back. Like I say, I do think Eves is the sort of player where he needs to run the games to like find his touch and find just almost like his place in it all, But then you have the argument of, can we afford to give him that run of games until he settles in, where points are so crucial for us,
We can't.
Yeah, exactly, we can't. I think, imagine Eves and Hugo up top as a front two, that'd be terrifying. But yeah, like you said, I don't think Hugo's had the best start. It seems like, again, a slow start. I think that could what it be. But going back to what Ronnie Moore said, he said you have to play to Hugo's strengths, and he really comes good for you. Like it's so well and good in chasing the ball and closing it down, but in terms of going forward, if you're the wide man, you need to provide the ball, and he needs to have the runner off him. And I think with the front three, he's got that, because when one of them's wide, the other come short to Hugo. Whereas with Tom Eves, it's almost like Eves in front of him, and then they've sort of come in behind him weirdly. It feels like we play completely different.
Or is that Eves playing different?
Yeah, I think Eves had a different attitude towards it than Hugo. Not necessarily a bad thing. I don't mean that as in a bad way. Like his attitude's poor. It's just like the way they play football, because everyone plays football differently.
You've got to bear in mind the state of the game at that point as well. The time left in the game, and what we're hoping to achieve out of the game, and what they're being asked to do, what Eves has been asked to do, and what the midfield are being asked to do. It's one of those things you could go on about all night, and it's just we're not going to get anywhere with it, are we? You're not going to be able to come to any conclusions. But
no. Listen,
overall, an excellent performance. Really, really good. Really positive. We're playing some passing football, the likes of which some Rotherham United fans have never seen before. Most Championship clubs see it week in, week out. Well, week in, probably not week out. You know what I mean? But it's something that we're not used to. And it's looking good. It's looking really, really positive, I think. So I've only got one more comment on the game.
So do I.
Fred should have had a penalty in that first half. I've seen it back now. I saw it back today. And if our goal was disallowed for a foul on their goalkeeper or an obstruction on their goalkeeper, Fred was absolutely taken, completely cleaned out off the ball by the defender. With the referee had a perfect view of it. He just literally wiped him out. Didn't really get it. A bit of inconsistency there, but anyway, it is what it is. You're not going to get. I'm going to say you're not going to get them all. We'll just not get any of them. But anyway,
we'll get one eventually.
Well, we'll see if we can go full season without one again.
I mean, I think we've used up our penalty rota against Morecambe, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
like the penalty we were going to win this season, we had to score against Morecambe. But yeah, just building off what you said, Mick, about a style of football we're almost not used to. I'm sort of not used to Rotherham doing them like little flicks around the corner and running after the ball and everything. Like if we were to do that, say, the last time we were in the Championship, not the current stint, the last time before that, would be like, what are we doing? Just look after the ball. But this time around, it feels different. It feels like we've sort of applied those tricks in training, and it's not the players doing it off cuff. It's almost like a game plan. And we're doing that, and it's like, oh, that was risky. Oh, it's paid off. Oh, it's paid off again and again. Like, there may have been like one or two times where it didn't quite come off against Leicester, but if we were to try that against a team of, not to hit the horse whilst it's down, but say Sheffield Wednesday, who are in a worse position than us, like we all have to, bite the bullet and say they are in a worse position than us. in the current way of things, if we were to try that, they wouldn't know what to do. Same with like Middlesbrough and Huddersfield, for example. If we were to try that against them, they wouldn't be able to deal with it as well as a team that's come down from the Premier League that are more accustomed to it. But to see a team of Rotherham's, not to use the old trope, a team like Rotherham doing that sort of thing, it's interesting and it makes the football look attractive and, you know, it makes you get behind the team more. And it's befitting of what Matt Taylor said earlier. We want to play the football that Rotherham knows, but make it attractive. And I think we're doing that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got to go through a couple of them. We've talked about the Stoke game. Aaron, the bus driver, says if we didn't get so many injuries, we would have a healthy bench and comfortably low mid-table, he believes, which I think is bang on, to be honest. Nicholas Gibos was very disappointed, but also very proud of the team and where we are going. Sam Dawes, we haven't got the depth in the squad. I hope we can get some signs in quickly. That's right. Chris Taylor, this is a question for maybe Thursday. Did we miss Ben Wiles?
Oh,
we did not.
No,
I don't think so either.
Move forward, we're going to briefly talk about the Stoke game. And I suppose the question is, Mick, what do you want to see? Obviously, well, there's no obviously about this. We've got a game that we could do without. I've done a Stoke preview, I says then we could really do without this game based on how the players were at the end of the game on Saturday. We could really do without a game on Tuesday. And the reason I say that even more is that we don't have the players to make 11 changes. We could make 4 or 5 changes, I'm sure we will, including the keeper. But you're going to have to play Dexter because we ain't got anybody else to play. You probably have to play Onyedimna. You'll probably have to play Rathbone and Cafu. We're so light that we don't have the benefits to make 11 changes, which Stoke could do.
I'm sure he'll be able to make 7 or 8 changes. I think the likes of Andre Green and the players that have been out and looking for match fitness will maybe make a start, but he'll change as many as he can. It's a pointless game. In my view, all we can do is hope to get some game time into the legs of the players that are not getting any Tommies, JJ, Kieran McGuckin, you know, the backup keeper, Dylan, you know, players like that. Sean Morrison, you know, he needs some game time to keep him fresh. So
starting Appiah as well.
Yeah. So straight away there, you've got 7 or 8 players. You know, you've got 7 or 8 changes right there. I think that's what he will do, and hopefully not have to play any of the first teamers, or if he does, just to try and make up the numbers. The games are ridiculous thing to say in it, but we are genuinely better off out of the competition. So probably
unless we wait to get Man U in 3rd round.
Yeah, I know, and that's the issue. There's the financial side of it, and I'm sure Big Tony will not want us out. He'll want us through on the basis that we might get a big tie in the next round. But from a fitness point of view, from a team squad point of view, it's not going to do us any favours, I don't think.
I think
from a sports point of view,
I'd like to see the youngsters. I certainly like McGuckin to get a start. Then I think that would make perfect sense for McGuckin to get a start in hopefully his natural position, whatever that is. Hopefully, he gets a start in his natural position. And maybe Hamish Douglas is obviously with the squad. It'd be nice to see him get some minutes under the belt. Stoke are going to make a lot of changes because their priority is obviously the league, and they can make changes and probably still be a good team, to be honest. What are your thoughts on what you want to see?
I agree that we could really do without this game at the minute. I think during the injury stuff, little injury crisis we've got going on, we could do with a full week's break before the window shuts, because then it's like a proper, stock check, reassess, then where we need to fill the holes basically. But that's one side of it. But I think there is another side to it as well, because we got there's no 2 ways about it. We got battered against Stoke in the league. So regardless of the teams that play out against each other, if we were to beat Stoke, it will still be a little bit of a mental boost of, that's happened and now we've gone out and beat them. So mentality side of it, if we beat Stoke, it's great. In terms of the sports and fitness side of it, we could really do without it, and that's probably why we will make quite a lot of changes. And I think the one player that will get probably the majority of the minutes from the start will be McGuckin as well. Because he seems to be a player that's broke out onto the scene under Matt Taylor. I've heard good things from Scarborough about him, but under Matt Taylor, it sort of appeared as he needs to fill the hole that we've got. Whereas now that we've seen him play, it's like, actually, the kid does really well. You know, he likes his tackles and stuff and everything. I think a lot of it is just minutes. He doesn't have as many minutes as everybody else, so he doesn't quite have the mental side of football of, you know, what's the potash, what's like, you know, figuring it out on the fly sort of thing that say someone like Jordan Hugel has, who was a lot older than him, but he's doing really well. I want to see him start against Stoke, if I'm being honest. Give him just as many minutes as he can, really. Yeah. And I think out of the little group that you can sort of see heading out on loan or being sold or whatever, in that little group, I think McGuckin's slowly peeling off from it, where actually the credit to the first team. And I think through cup competitions, that's how you keep him ticking over.
Yeah. Jimmy Dyson says, Man U away in the next round after whooping Stoke on a rainy night with the Millers singing, how rubbish must you be? We've played all our kids. I think it's a no-lose situation. If we lose, then we're not going to get too down. As long as it's not 7-0 or something ridiculous, then if it's a 2-0 loss, sort of thinking, that's right. We played, made a lot of changes, we can move on. If we manage to win, you sort of go, that's great, we've won. We've got a third round tie against somebody. Might be a big tie, might not be a big tie. But you've then got that positive, like Danny mentioned, the positivity of beating the team that did you on opening day. Having said it's a rubbish tie, it might actually be the perfect tie. Maybe. Don't know.
We'll see, won't we? We'll see.
Try and give some predictions.
No. I think we'll go there, and I think we'll draw one apiece, and it'll go to penalties.
I've got a similar vein. I've got 0-0, and for them to win on penalties.
Fair enough, yeah.
Because I feel sorry for any Rotherham fans that make that journey if that happens. But yeah, that's my prediction. Danny.
No, I'm going to echo you too. I think it's going to go to penalties as well. But I think if it does, we'll win on penalties. Something will happen where we'll go here now then, and we'll win on penalties. The only thing is getting to penalties in the first place. Because I've noticed that Phillips is very good with penalties, isn't he?
Yeah.
All right, it were only Morecambe, but he still has that positional awareness in goal, and he's able to read where the penalty is going quite well. So I think if it goes to penalties, whether it's 0-0, 1-1, whatever, I think we'll go through.
So 0-0, 1-1?
I'll go 0-0.
It's a horrible 0-0. Did you say a loss on penalties, mate?
I didn't give a result on pay. If it goes to penalties, I think we'll win. Okay.
These don't go into the league table. We had the predictions last week for the Leicester game. Nobody got any points for that one. I went 2-2. Tom and Danny went 1-0 wins. So no points to add to the tally. Mick, you went 2-0. Enjoy Dublin? Just let me know. I highly recommend going to Dublin for everybody.
I highly recommend it. Yeah, great weekend. Great weekend, apart from Ryanair, but let's not get into that. They're a shambles. But the rest of it, yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Quite a bit of Guinness was taken on board. And yeah, thoroughly enjoyable.
Good. That's Mick's glowing review.
So right now, if you want to come to the podcast, you know.
Yeah. There we go. Anything else? Very quickly, an hour and 10 minutes nearly over.
They'll not want to sponsor it, Danny, because we generally start on time. So
they can sponsor me then, because I'm normally late, aren't I?
Good point. Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Cool. We're still working out our plans for deadline day, which is obviously Friday. We will probably decide near the time. If there's no signs we made, we might not do a deadline day episode.
Given it's a Friday as well.
I do want to do one because it's a Friday. We can have a couple of drinks and have a good laugh, and But if nothing happens, I'm not spending 3 hours on here talking about nothing.
I mean, the only downside is I finish work at 10, so I've legit got an hour of the deadline to go. Mind you, though, I'll finish at 10 and we'll announce a signing at 5 past.
Well, exactly. Let's see. If there's talk of a sign, we probably will come on and do something Friday. Either way, we're here Thursday. Either way, we'll be here Thursday to look back at the Stoke game, look ahead to the Norwich game. Just on the Stoke game, I don't think you're going to be able to watch it. I don't think it's an iPhone. I've looked, and from what I can find, I couldn't find a match pass on the website, and it appears to be an EFL regulation that these are not streamed. Don't ask me why, but that's what I can find. Well,
Do you think will we get audio?
I think there is an audio pass. I think there's an audio pass so you can listen to the club commentary.
I can listen to Matt Goodwin's serenading voice. That's fine.
Yeah. From next season, all EFL Cup games are televised through Sky as part of the new TV deal. But this season, it's a no. So, anyone interested? So we'll end there. Thank you for being with us tonight. Make sure you subscribe. We have over 1,000 views on the Insta reaction. So thank you everybody who participated and watched that, and they've got loads of comments on that. Thank you very much. Make sure you've subscribed to the YouTube channel because we're creeping up on 1,200 subscribers. Wow, we're getting up there.
No Swedish fish this time.
No fish. Maybe at 2,000 we can find something.
I'm going to negotiate that later.
Make sure you've given this video a like, maybe give the thumbs up on the video if you are watching on YouTube, and subscribed as I mentioned. If you are listening on iTunes or Spotify, make sure you have subscribed onto wherever you are listening, or followed, as it will be on Spotify, and you should be able to give us a 5-star rating there as well, if you can. I'm also going to put in the links to the comments of the Football Content Awards. If you want to nominate or vote for us, there will be a link in the show notes on YouTube. I'll add that, and also the show notes for iTunes and Spotify. If you don't worry about it. But if you fancy doing it, go on there, and we would appreciate any positive feedback that we can be given.
If loads of you vote for us and we actually happen to win, then we'll have to start a Just Fund Me. You know what I mean? Just giving page, GoFundMe page, so we can actually attend the awards at however many hundreds of pounds per person it is to attend. So don't bother.
If you want an episode where Mick wins out the price of something, go and nominate us.
Yeah.
And the winner of the How Much award is.
So yeah, thank you everybody. We appreciate everybody listening and participating. Loads of comments and on Twitter and everything else. We appreciate everybody who gets in contact with us digitally and in person, because people talk to us. So we appreciate everybody, and thank you for being with us. Basically, otherwise we're just three divvies talking about football to nobody. But thank you very much for being with us. Mick, thank you for being with us tonight, and I will see you on Thursday. Perfect. Danny, are you with us on Thursday?
I am. I may be slightly hungover because it's the day after my birthday, but I'll still be with you.
I'm hungover today. It's fine. Yeah, it's all right. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Up the Millers, and we'll see you next time.
Up the Millers.
Into Wales through a goal, slots it beyond Rotherham, and the Millers are in front in the South Yorkshire derby. And for the first time in 42 years, Rotherham United win at Bramall Lane. On the edge of the box for Doffin, he can hit them, and he does. The Doffin has scored an absolute screamer for Rotherham United. Rotherham United have secured